Controversial gun legislation passed a procedural hurdle today in the Senate. It was a 68-31 vote that will allow debate and amendments on the measure. We welcome back to the show Senator Mike Lee, Republican from Utah, who voted against today's cloture motion and has threatened to filibuster any gun bill. As always, I know you're very busy, Senator Lee. We appreciate your time very much. You voted against the procedural motion today. Could you tell us why?
Yes, I voted against it because this is legislation that would restrict the rights of law-abiding American citizens while doing little or nothing to protect us against the kind of violent gun crime that precipitated this whole movement a few months ago, the tragic events of Newtown, Connecticut. We need to look out for our Second Amendment rights. We need to look out for all the rights protected in our Constitution. And any time we're restricting the rights of the law-abiding, that ought to be a concern to us. There ought to be a careful balancing test, and we ought not do that unless we can show some demonstrated benefit from that restriction.
If the Senate bill is amended, as I understand it, Majority Leader Reid said the First Amendment is going to be on the background checks from Senator Manchin and Senator Toomey, their new compromise. If their amendment is substituted into the current amendment, would that change your mind on voting on the whole bill?
No. The short answer is no. The longer answer is that I haven't seen it yet. It still isn't public. We've been waiting for it. It's been discussed on various news channels over the last 48 hours as if it's a fixed legislative proposal. And yet I have yet to see legislative text. I'm told that it'll be coming out soon, but I've been hearing that for about the last 48 hours.
Senator Toomey was on the show yesterday. I interviewed him on the question of background checks. And Senator Lee, you're a distinguished attorney. I'm just a reporter. But I did try to ask him what the key spots were. He said basically this is for gun shows and Internet. It's not for the exchange of family members or close friends, and there will be no, federal registry on this. That's how I understood it. Do those things meet your approval or disapproval?
Okay, well, I understand that description, and that description certainly makes it a lot less threatening than what was proposed by Senator Schumer and what moved through the Senate Judiciary Committee a few weeks ago. But again, the devil's in the details. We need to see what the details are. We haven't seen the details. I, in all probability, will not be voting against it. In fact, I'm certain I won't be voting for it because there are still enough things in it that I find not warranted. I find not worth voting for. They still would have a significant restriction on the rights of the law-abiding in the absence of any real empirical evidence suggesting that this would deter the kind of violent crime that we're concerned about.
When you say vote against it, you mean vote against the Toomey-Manchin amendment?
Yes, as well as the larger legislative package.
Do you think?
But again, it's difficult to say too because we still haven't seen the Toomey-Manchin language.
Right.
It's not there.
No,
and so
I get that.
It's terribly frustrating when people go on television. They talk about it as if it's an existing proposal, and there's nothing there.
No, I very much appreciate that. Let me ask you a political question on this. All the opinion polls show that the public wants something done. Now, in terms of assault weapon bans, that's gone. In terms of the ending the multi-ammunition magazine cartridges, that's gone. Okay, so the worst of these things that came from Obama is gone. But the polls show that the public wants something done, and it just seemed like the background check was a matter that Republicans could come around and show the public they want to get something rather than obstructing. Do those kinds of politics enter into your thinking?
Well, sure. Look, I mean, I understand that public opinion seems to suggest one thing or another. That often is a powerful motivator in the Senate. But we have to dive a little bit deeper into the details. And what we discovered, Larry, is that although people may answer the question one way when all they hear are background checks, when they come to an understanding that a universal background check system will prove feckless, completely ineffective, unless it's backed up in some way by a record-keeping system, perhaps culminating in a nationwide gun registration system, it's not going to work. And Americans are not comfortable with that. They're not comfortable with the government keeping track of what guns they own and where they bought them, any more than they're comfortable with the government keeping track of who they voted for, what they had for breakfast yesterday, or how often they go to church.
Well, it's a freedom issue. It's a freedom issue, and I'm very sympathetic. Last one, sir. Senator Cruz, Senator Rand Paul, Senator Rubio, yourself, and others have threatened to filibuster this. Will you, in fact, filibuster the gun bill?
As you know, Larry, the word filibuster carries many meanings, and the way it's often used, the way we have implemented it here, refers to the fact that we're going to demand a 60-vote margin, a 60-vote threshold. We demanded that in connection with the motion to proceed. We will demand that again in connection with cloture on the entire bill. And we do that because we believe that particularly with this kind of legislation, a legislation that would tend to restrict the rights of law-abiding American citizens, we shouldn't have a law that moves forward without broad-based bipartisan consensus. We don't want something negotiated behind closed doors in some backroom deal, brought to the floor of the Senate at the last minute, and enacted into law with a bare, simple majority consisting of senators from only one party.
All right, we'll leave it there. Senator Mike Lee, we appreciate your time. Very much appreciate your point of view, sir.
Thank you.